Hey there folks, this is Hooves of Doom and welcome to the video. This is my brief but spectacular take on the Summer Skirmish stream from a couple days ago. So the box games will be supported for the long term. That's good, no longer kind of a seasonal thing. I tend to think that these games push the boundaries of the Warhammer worlds by introducing new concepts and themes. They're great opportunities to explore kind of the nooks and crannies of 40k and AOS, explore on the squad level or unit level that might not be really ever available as a full-fledged army. Really, in general, I really like these types of products. I think they're interesting, even if I'm not really too motivated to buy them at times. I really love that they're kind of out there for those that have an interest in them. So I think we can see some of these products coming out over the coming weeks and months. This is obviously the Summer Skirmish, so that's the time frame we're working with. So first up is Warcry. We have the Rotmire Creed warband, very thematic swamp warband that are, seeking the perfect pestilence, so to speak. They are obviously kind of a Nurgle-ish type of warband, but they're not necessarily dedicated to that squad. They might not even know that Nurgle exists by that name. Instead, they worship the World Liege, which is basically assuming some sort of aspect of Nurgle within the swamps of Gur. Like the other Warcry boxes, I think these are really cool models exploring different aspects of chaos not seen before. This is kind of a marvelous growing line of different chaos mortals across the Warcry range. That is quite wonderful to see. I just think they're enormously thematic and very much different, and not something that you can really anticipate, right? We have a spider warband a few months ago, right? Yeah, there's no world in which you could have predicted that would be something that would come out, right? There's no real connection between spiders and chaos. And yet we have all these different weird thematic armies and warbands, which I think is really awesome. So I think this, again, is a very interesting warband. Kind of reminds me of like the Vietnam or an East Asian type of aesthetic with the bamboo and the swamps and the types of colors and the types of environment they're working in. We've already seen their opponents, the Horns of Heshut. Sure, it might have been nice to see a Chaos Dwarf or two among their number, but that's okay. Again, I think that warband is also very thematic, very interesting for what it's doing in the game. As with the previous Warcry box set, we're spoiled by kind of the unique terrain that is quite unlike anything that we've seen in Age of Sigmar. Always difficult to portray a jungle environment, however, as there's never really enough terrain to really represent that type of environment. You can think of the Catagen jungle fighters here in 3rd edition. They're little palm trees. It's just really difficult, unless you're really scratch building terrain, to come up with something that is dense enough and interesting enough to have that necessary spread. It's in Gur, which is the realm of beasts, so even the trees are aggressive and carnivorous, and you can see that they're almost like these claw-like branches. I think that's really interesting. Much of the terrain is also centered around remnants of a Seraphon void ship, which crashed much earlier, and that also further emphasizes the kind of the jungle aesthetic, as that's the natural environment of Seraphon from the world that was. It's not quite, again, a match for the environment and this kind of thematic image that they are using to promote it, but it's close. It gets you in the mindset at least, and I think that, again, just an all-around really cool, interesting product. New box does mean new rules that are dedicated to this new setting in Gur, but the Gur game's core mechanics will remain the same. So up next is the Necromunda Goliaths. They have a couple options: a spindle or wheel, bolters or grenade launchers, different headdress on each of the models. Definitely kind of exudes the Goliath brutal industrial aesthetic. Not the most fuel efficient or aerodynamic of vehicles, as they really shouldn't be. These are Goliath vehicles, and I think that comes off fairly well. The one thing I will say here is, if you're not interested in these particular ones, all the other gains of Necromunda will be getting their own vehicles for patrolling the ash wastes, and I think these were fairly brutal, blunt objects as vehicles, and I'll be interested to see what the other gains are going to be having. So after that, Warhammer Underworlds with the Witch Hunters. This is the best. This is the cream of the cream for the whole reveal, in my opinion. The Witch Hunters from the Order of Azir join Warhammer Underworlds. Very much in line with the Witch Hunter from Curse City, which is among the best sculpts that Games Workshop has ever produced, in my opinion. Stakes aplenty, and the crossbow grenade launcher is a nice touch. Games Workshop, we really need a proper army of this faction at some point. I love these models. I don't think you can produce enough. They're really nice. The characters here are all interesting. They have kind of thematic and interesting names and mechanics in Warhammer Underworlds, if you're interested in that game. The people especially like the little dogs, which are just, cool. Anytime they produce a dog model, it's popular, or an animal model of any type, really. It's a popular thing. These two dogs are called Rat Spike and Grot Biter, which are just fantastic. And they mentioned in the stream that Rat Spike is an old reference. I believe that's to John Blanche's early 1989, I believe, art book by the same name. So I'll be tempted to pick this up. Interestingly, I've been trying to get my hands on that art book for a long time. It's been out of print for a long time. Obviously, it's ludicrously expensive on the secondary market, and there's only 2 libraries in the world that have it, and they're both in Europe. So we'll see. Maybe I can get one. The Amazonians for Blood Bowl. A classic resculpt of one of the original kits. Looking back at that original kit, there are some changes, but it is a substantial improvement, obviously. I mean, there's a good 25 years or so probably between these two. They don't have the skull helms anymore, but I do like the thematic helmets. In some ways, they kind of mirror the original skulls in terms of their shape and flow, but in a way that's a little more streamlined. The original feathers that were on the back of their heads has been replaced with flowing hair. Those are good changes. I think in some ways the unit or the team is a little generic, but I like the actual sculpts here. I think they're fairly well done. These are actually agile humans. They're not elves, as the classic Amazonians were. So each type of player represents a different animal aspect, all the different types of players within Blood Bowl. So there's like a jaguar and an eagle. Again, I think this is something that could have been pushed further, but they're fine. Not part of the stream, but afterwards we saw a new star player for the team, and I think it's just a really cool snake dude. Kill Team. Alright, what should have been perhaps the biggest reveal was surprisingly the weakest, in my opinion. We got to see some of the war bands, and they look great. And there was a hint at the new terrain, but for whatever reason, they didn't want to reveal everything. And I don't know the reason for that. It seemed a little weird. It's just, I don't know. Why have this thing that's like partially revealed during their big reveal show? So the Imperial Navy Breachers are interesting. I like that the shield is similar to the hatches you might find on a Navy ship. It has some of the same design elements, like the fitted weapon slot that you see on other type of breacher units within 40k. I'm specifically thinking of those of the Iron Hands for Horus Heresy. But very much kind of a deep nautical vibe. And I like that 40k plays with that aesthetic in deep space. But you know what they really should introduce through Kill Team? Adeptus Arbites, right? The Judge Dreads of 40k. Why isn't that a thing? I get maybe not a full army is realistic, but this is the perfect game for that to be a thing. And so far it has not. And if you were to release that Games Workshop, I would buy it immediately. I love those models. Of the two warbands, I think the Kroot steal the show in my opinion. I like both, but the Kroot kind of edge them out. It's just been too long as an underdeveloped race and theme within 40k. So apart from the initial release almost 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, they've really only had one single model from Blackstone Fortress. So it's been a really limited concept. And I love that the models have a lot of character. They're mercenaries, so that makes sense. I like the little eyepieces, and the Hound is great. My one pushback is that the central figure with the raised pulse rifle is a little too similar to the Shaper model from the original kit. This is the leader of the squad. He also depicted here with a Kroot rifle, but it also came with a pulse rifle in the same blister pack, and you can see it's a very similar pose, just kind of raising it up in the air. Why they decided to almost mirror that pose again on a range of models that doesn't have a lot of variety, I don't know. I don't know if that was deliberate, but I think it could have been pushed and made into something a little different. Maybe it was a deliberate callback. I don't know. In both cases, these do not represent the full warband, right? There are more models coming. We know, for instance, that there's a Kroot with a variety of pistols, right? Why they could tell us that but not show us the model, I don't know. So we saw a glimpse of the terrain in one image. Okay, great. You can't get a good sense of the scale or the three-dimensional quality of this terrain, but all right. It does look cool. I just want to know more about it. So overall, I think it's going to be a real cool summer of products. I love it. I'm both excited for the imminent releases in Age of Sigmar and 40k, as well as all these other box sets. We're truly living in an age of bounty, and the pandemic logistics issues seem to be slowly resolving. So buckle up, there's a lot of cool products coming in the near future.